At a brewery, a worker noticed beer leaking from a tap. Instead of closing the valve or using the proper tool, he tried to stop the leak with his hand. However, the pressure was too high. The liquid gushed out forcefully, wasting the product and making the area slippery and unsafe. This incident shows that temporary fixes in pressurized systems can lead to serious risks. Valves, seals, and regulators should be inspected and maintained regularly. Workers should be trained to shut down the system and follow safe intervention procedures whenever a leak is detected. Pressurized flows should never be blocked by hand, as a reflexive action can turn into a serious accident within seconds. On a ship, a massive chain was being pulled by a crane. However, the chain couldn't withstand the excessive load and suddenly snapped. With a loud crack, the released chain whipped violently through the air, putting everyone nearby in danger. This incident is a stark reminder of how deadly overloaded or poorly maintained chains can be. Lifting equipment must be inspected regularly, and every chain should be checked for damage and wear before use. Workers should always stay clear of tensioned lines and pulling paths. When a chain breaks, disaster can strike within seconds. Maintaining a safe distance is the simplest yet most effective way to stay alive. A pedestrian walking past a building construction site collapsed after being struck on the head by a falling brick. This incident shows how severe the consequences of falling objects can be. All materials at construction sites must be securely fastened. Protective nets and barriers should be installed and enclosed. Shielded walkways should be provided for pedestrians. A simple safety net can prevent a falling brick from changing a life forever. A large steel structure was placed on a platform to be lifted by a crane. Several workers were standing nearby. However, when the crane began lifting, the structure lost its balance and suddenly shifted, leaving the workers dangerously close to the load. This incident is a reminder of how critical balance and safety checks are during crane operations. Before any lift, slings and attachment points must be carefully inspected, the center of gravity properly adjusted, and no workers should ever be under or near the suspended load. Standing just one step too close to a crane's path can turn into a major risk within seconds. In China, a driver refueled his vehicle, but forgot to remove the hose before driving away. As the car moved forward, the hose stretched, pulling down the fuel pump and putting two nearby people in danger. This incident shows how quickly carelessness at a gas station can turn into an accident. During refueling, the engine must always be turned off, the hose carefully removed and returned to its holder, and the vehicle should only move once all connections are safely detached. A simple check can prevent both fire and injury risks. In a factory's production area, a group of workers was operating a metal molding press. The first cycle went smoothly, but during the second attempt, one worker inserted the material into the mold too late. While the others had already pulled their hands back, his hand remained inside as the press closed. This incident is a reminder that even a 1-second delay on a press machine can lead to severe injuries. Molding presses must always be equipped with fixed guards, automatic locking systems, and two-hand control mechanisms. Material adjustments should never be done by hand, but with dedicated rods or tools. Safe operation on a press depends not on speed, but on coordination and careful communication. On a factory production line, a box stopped at the end of a conveyor belt and became trapped between the belt and the platform. A worker noticed this and bent down to retrieve the box. At that moment, his hand got caught between the moving belt and the platform. This incident is a reminder of how dangerous pinch points on conveyor belts can be. Workers should never try to retrieve fallen or jammed objects by hand. Instead, they should use special tools or rods. All conveyor systems must have protective guards, emergency stop buttons, and regular safety inspections. Even routine tasks can quickly turn into serious accidents when safety precautions are neglected. A construction worker on an upper floor was installing wooden beams. To make his job easier, he stepped onto one of the beams, but it hadn't been fully secured. The support beneath it shifted, causing the worker to lose his balance and fall. This incident shows that the risk of falling from height is always among the most serious hazards. Elevated work areas must be equipped with guardrails, safety nets, or personal fall arrest systems. Beams, temporary platforms, and supports should never be stepped on before being properly secured, and the surface and connection points must be checked before every move. At a work site, a crane was lowering a bundle of steel plates to the ground. Just as the load was about to touch the surface, the lifting cable suddenly snapped. Due to the tension release, one of the steel plates rebounded and struck a nearby worker. A routine lowering operation turned dangerous in a matter of seconds. This incident highlights the critical importance of regular inspection and maintenance of lifting equipment. Cables, hooks, and slings must be examined before every use for signs of wear, loosening, or deformation. Workers should never stand near suspended or lowering loads. Keeping a safe distance is not just a rule, but a life-saving habit. Safety begins with the simplest yet most effective precautions against the unexpected. At a construction site, a worker was operating near a dump truck. As the truck reversed to unload its cargo, the driver failed to notice the worker behind it. The worker lost his balance and fell, and at that moment, the truck's load was released uncontrollably, creating a dangerous situation around the area. This incident demonstrates how hazardous it can be to stand in the blind spots of heavy vehicles. Workers should never position themselves behind trucks or within unloading zones. Dump trucks must always be guided by a spotter during reverse maneuvers. In addition, clear pedestrian paths and vehicle routes should be established on site, and both audible and visual warning systems must remain active at all times. Safety begins with recognizing unseen dangers before they happen. At a construction site, a worker was passing through a narrow walkway next to a wall. At the same time, a truck was reversing into the same area. Due to limited visibility, the operator failed to notice the worker behind the vehicle, and within seconds, a dangerous crush situation developed between the truck and the wall. This incident is a reminder of how deadly blind spots can be during reversing operations. Heavy vehicles in confined spaces must always be guided by a spotter. Operators should perform a full area check before moving in reverse and ensure that cameras and sensors are functioning properly. Pedestrian workers should stay clear of these zones and only pass through when directed by the spotter. A worker was transporting a heavy steel piece using a handcart. While pulling the cart, one of the wheels got stuck on the floor, causing the cart to stop abruptly. At that moment, the load lost its balance and began to tip over. The worker instinctively tried to stop it with his hands, but the weight was far too heavy. This incident reminds us that even manual transport with handcarts can involve serious risks. Wheels, connections, and floor conditions must always be checked before each operation. Loads should be properly secured, and the center of gravity must be balanced. If a cart begins to tip, workers should never try to hold the load by hand. Instead, they should immediately move to a safe distance. A simple inspection can prevent a major accident. In a factory workshop, a large and long metal structure was being lifted by an overhead crane. The crane began lifting before the load was properly secured. At that moment, the frame slipped out of balance, and one of the workers instinctively tried to steady it with his hand. That seemingly ordinary moment turned into a serious danger. This incident highlights one of the most critical mistakes made during crane operations. Never stand under or touch a suspended load. Workers must stay clear of the load's movement area and never place themselves in the line of fire. If load guidance is necessary, it should only be done using tag lines from a safe distance. In addition, the center of gravity must be correctly calculated before lifting, the slings properly balanced, and clear communication maintained between the operator and the ground crew. A final check before lifting a load can stop a potential accident before it even begins. Stay alert, stay safe, and subscribe for more real safety lessons.